Hello and welcome to Arise America. I'm Debbye Turner Bell. In the news today, the U.S. tries to soothe diplomatic feelings with India over the arrest of a New York-based diplomat. And the Federal Reserve Chairman says he will reduce the stimulus for the U.S. economy. And on the tinder-dry West Coast, firefighters try to control a blaze in the Big Sur region of California.
I'm Andrew Schmertz. Wall Street takes off on the news from the Fed.
We will have that and a lot more right now on Arise America.
From coast to coast, every culture, every angle. This is Arise America.
The U.S. State Department tried Wednesday to soothe feelings in India over the arrest of a diplomat for alleged visa fraud. As we learn more from the Justice Department about the charges, Devyani Khobragade was arrested and reportedly strip-searched upon booking. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry called a top Indian official and voiced regret about the events after the arrest, as well as his hope that the incident will not affect U.S.-India relations. But a State Department spokesman emphasized that the diplomatic and law enforcement issues are separate.
The Secretary understands very deeply the importance of enforcing our laws and protecting victims, and like all officials in positions of responsibility inside the U.S. government, expects that laws will be followed by everyone here in our country. It's also particularly important to Secretary Kerry that foreign diplomats serving in the United States are accorded respect and dignity, just as we expect our own diplomats should receive overseas as well. It's State Department policy to advise foreign missions of allegations made involving a member of a mission or a family member. So we did so. We advised them of this on September 4th. But again, that's separate, entirely separate from the law enforcement process that is an important one of looking into these allegations.
Thank you for the allegations in the complaint, actually, against Khobragade are when she applied for a visa for her Indian housekeeper, she claimed that she would be paid $4,500 per month. But the U.S. Attorney's Office claims that she only offered her 30,000 rupees per month, which translates into only $3.31 per hour, far below the U.S. minimum wage. Speaking about her arrest, Khobragade said in an email, "I broke down many times as the indignities of repeated handcuffing, stripping, and cavity searches, swabbing in a holdup with common criminals and drug addicts were all being imposed upon me despite my incessant assertions of immunity." With us is Khobragade's attorney, Dan Arshack, and joining us is the attorney for Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Strauss-Kahn was the head of the International Monetary Fund, who also was charged with was charged with sexually assaulting a hotel maid. Amit Mehta is with us from our Washington bureau. Welcome, both of you, to Arise America. I do appreciate it.
A pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Dan, I want to start with you. The charges against diplomat Khobragade are that one count of visa fraud and one count of making false statements. So let's start here. How do you answer those charges? I
answer that she's completely not guilty of all those charges. We said so in court. And in the event that we have to actually prove that in court, we will. She'll be vindicated. I'd like to address very briefly some of the factual allegations that have been made. You said in your intro that she had suggested that she was going to be paying her domestic worker $4,500 a month. That number comes off of an application for a visa that was submitted by the domestic worker. The domestic worker was obligated to put on that application the actual monthly salary of her employer, Dr. Khobragade. The actual monthly salary of the employer was $4,500 a month. The United States government isn't even able to read their own forms correctly. There was never any allegation that she was going to be paying her domestic worker $54,000 a year. There was an indication on that form that Dr. Khobragade was earning $4,500 a month for her position in New York. She was to get as well a slight increase but for being based in New York, but that wasn't an indication of what she was going to be earning.
Okay, well, that being said, however, if you do the translation with the rupees, it comes to $3.31 per hour. Is that not correct?
That is totally not correct.
Okay,
so let's get the facts straight.
What did she earn? What does she earn? What's correct?
when that domestic worker went in for her interview at the consulate in Delhi, she brought with her her application for a visa, which said that Dr. Khobragade earned $4,500 a month, and she brought a contract with her that both of them had signed that said that she was going to earn $9.75 an hour. And the purpose of that was so that the consular agent in New Delhi could establish that the employer, Dr. Khobragade, had enough money and income to pay the employee. Well, $4,500 against the $9.75 an hour, which equals $1,560 a month, made that consular official satisfied that that salary was going to be able to be paid. And that is what she was paid. Some portion of her funds were sent at her request to her husband in Delhi, 30,000 rupees a month, and the rest of it was paid to her in New York. Those are the facts. If they had ever called Dr. Khobragade before they arrested her on the street while she was delivering her child to school, they would have been told that, they would have understood that, and the entire diplomatic snafu here could have been avoided.
All right, let me ask you one other question, and then I want to bring Amit into this conversation. And that is, it's my understanding that the employee has been out of communication. Do you know where she is, and has she confirmed the information that you're giving to me?
I don't know where she has been. All that I can tell you is that on June 22, she disappeared from the Khobragade house. She said, I'm going shopping, and she disappeared. On June 23, the Khobragades reached out to the New York City Police Department and said, she's missing. We don't know where she is. Can you help find us? We want to file a missing persons report. They were told by the New York City Police Department, well, you can't file one because you're not family. And so Dr. Khobragade sent a certified letter to the deputy inspector at the 17th precinct and said, we're missing our domestic worker. Can you help us find her? And they showed up in front, the police showed up in front of the permanent mission to India to take the missing person report.
Okay.
And all of these facts were put forward to the police department at that time.
I want you to sit tight for just 1 second because we want to get to then how Dr. Khobragade was treated when she was taken into custody. But let's bring Amit Mehta into this conversation. I know that you served as an attorney for Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Can you sort of parse through, and I know that Dan could do this as well, but can you parse through what sort of immunity, what sort of protection is given to diplomats and what levels are available in terms of those privileges and protections?
Certainly. It's nice to be here this evening. There really are two levels of immunity that diplomats might receive. There's the highest level of immunity, which is known as absolute immunity. That kind of immunity is really reserved only for the highest level of diplomats. And that's the kind of immunity that prevents you as a diplomat from being criminally charged or civilly sued for any conduct, whether it's related to your official duties or not. The lesser form of duty, which is the far more prevalent kind of immunity, is called functional immunity or official acts immunity. And immunity in that kind of situation arises only for acts that are related to the diplomat's official functions or official duties.
All right. Amit, sit tight for just a second. So let me come back to you, Dan. I know that the crux of this story, well, there's many nuances to the story, but one of them is the outrage created by the treatment of Dr. Khobragade when she was taken into custody, and that she made it known that she is a diplomat, that she deserved immunity, and there are levels of immunity. So first of all, what level of immunity do you think that she is entitled to as a deputy consul general?
Well, I will tell you that from the beginning of this case, through the Indian government, we have asserted and we continue to assert that she has been entitled to full immunity. When the application was made for her diplomatic status in the United States, the application was made for full immunity. If the United States on its own decides to anoint a person with one kind as opposed to another, it doesn't mean that that's what she was entitled to. Our position is that she was entitled to full immunity.
And as I understand it, this full immunity particularly comes as a result of when the charge is related to something to do with her job. And is that what's your logic there that this issue with a household worker has to do with her role as a diplomat?
So let me say it again. Our position is she has always been entitled to full immunity. The State Department says, well, no, she's only entitled to consular immunity for official acts. And our position even under that is if she's has official acts immunity, then all of the allegations that are made in this case fall under the rubric of her official acts, and she should have that immunity as well.
Okay.
All of it is, let's push the ball forward a little bit. All of it is nuanced by the fact that, as you may know, recently, today, India transferred Dr. Khobragade from the consulate to the permanent mission, at which she has diplomatic status and full immunity. Under the State Department own guidelines, immunity, when it is received, is for future acts and for past acts. So this whole kerfuffle about what kind of immunity that she has and the Talmudic examination of that is really for naught. The fact is she's always had complete immunity, and today she certainly has complete immunity.
I understand why you feel the way you do. Amit, I want to bring you back into this. When you heard of this story, what was your reaction to, A, the way she was arrested and how she was treated when she was taken into custody?
My reaction was like a lot of people, which is that, you know, when the United States government makes a decision to arrest somebody with diplomatic status, it needs to do so in a way that's sensitive to her diplomatic status. She's not an ordinary person. Her arrest will have international implications. And so where the United States really fumbled the ball here is not taking that into account and putting itself now in a position where it's being criticized worldwide for treatment of somebody with diplomatic status.
A couple things I want to be sure and ask you before we run out of time. First of all, Secretary of State John Kerry came out and said that he regretted how this has happened. He has expressed regret over that. What's your reaction to that?
We appreciate Secretary Kerry's coming out in front of the curve on this issue. We all regret how she was treated, and we regret that she was arrested in this case at all. As I've explained, a simple phone call at the beginning would have avoided this altogether. The facts are not as they have been displayed by the U.S. Attorney's Office, and we expect and hope that Secretary Kerry will take the next step and make sure that this entire issue is resolved diplomatically without the necessity of further indignities to Dr. Khobragade.
Now, as I understand it, though, the State Department did, in fact, notify the mission in September of her arrest.
No.
Are you saying, no, that's not true?
She was never informed by the State Department in September of an arrest. What she was informed of in September was the State Department acknowledging that since the prior June, the Indian consulate, through Dr. Khobragade, had been informing the State Department of the issues regarding the domestic's disappearance and theft of a variety of items from the Khobragade's home. That had been that information had been provided to the State Department, and in September, the State Department acknowledged receiving that information. Did they ever call to say, can you explain to us what the financial circumstances are? No, they never did. The next thing that happened was in December, this arrest.
This arrest on the 17th, I believe.
On the 12th.
On the 12th, yes, if that's correct. So was there some sort of action that Dr. Khobragade should have taken in response to that notification?
That's a fair question. What did she do in response? Well, in response, the Indian consulate, through Dr. Khobragade, provided the State Department with all of the information that I've described here. That information was available to them. What never happened, I'm certain, was that information never filtered down to the diplomatic protective services officer who decided that on his own he would go ahead and institute an arrest.
And finally, before we go, and we really are out of time, was Dr. Khobragade physically harmed in any way while she was in custody?
She was treated by the United States Marshal Service the way any criminal, any person charged with a crime is treated when they're arrested. She was not treated with deference to her diplomatic status.
All right, we'd like you to keep us updated on this.
I'd be happy to. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming in. I do appreciate it. And Amit Mehta, who joined